Board Game Homies, where a group of friends play, review, and share about all things board games. Sitting around the table today are
Reed, Becky,
Gillian,
and I'm Angela. Today we have first, second, and third impressions of Nucleum, aka how many times will we talk about trains on this podcast? But first, what's bringing you joy?
So my joy game is one that I'm very excited and just recently pre-ordered through Devere, the publisher. I got the White Castle Matcha expansion, and I also Gillian got a copy too. So we are excited. It's going to ship at the end of October.
Ooh, end of October. That's soon.
That's soon. Yeah, I'm excited to play that. I hear it gives you more than the 9 turns the base game
12.
does.
It just adds 3 more turns with some great green dice.
And you make matcha.
It looks really cool. I've been seeing all these pictures from Essen, the big German game convention, and I cannot wait to play it. It really looks like it has the same quality and elegance that White Castle has, and I hope that with intentionality and the beauty that is in White Castle, I really hope that it's not superfluous or that it feels like a departure from the game. It appears to be something that's kind of seamlessly made a part of it.
I think I'm most looking forward to having a resurgence in our group, like obsessing over the White Castle. When we first started playing it, we played it several times in all different player counts, and we've kind of slowed down on it because we're playing other games now, but I'm excited that we're going to want to play it again and probably play it again and again. Also, green dice. I'm stoked.
And a green bridge, but maybe one of you can put my bridge together for me.
Oh no, it's not going to fit in the box.
That was the biggest complaint people said. Like, it's not going to fit in the box. You will not be able to put anything else. And for my birthday, Becky and Gillian got me a White Castle game organizer, so I'm just going to have the 2 games next to each other.
Maybe they'll have a Kickstarter and do a big box, which is just a
A
normal size
box for Devere. I'm super enjoying, it's kind of a cop-out because it encompasses a lot of things, but I really am having just such a love affair with polyomino games, and I know that's like, duh, you like polyomino games, but I really like polyomino games. We have recently played the White Castle. We've recently played Isle of Cats and World Wonders, and I have talked about how much I really like Wild Tiled West by Paul Dennen. But I have a polyomino game that's sitting on my shelf that I want to open up and play because of this, like, love of polyominoes we have, called New York Zoo. Came out a few years ago, and it's about, building a polyomino zoo for your animals, obviously. But I just really like placing tiles in weird shapes and having them go together. And so the thing that brings me joy probably all of the time for the rest of my life are polyominoes.
I'll tell you now, Becky's going to be very conflicted about that game because on one hand, it's polyominoes, which she loves. On the other hand, it's animals, which she doesn't love.
That is very true.
I think the tiebreaker will be how she feels about New York.
Or zoos. She hates zoos.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
It's got 2 check marks against. But polyominoes.
3 check marks. 4.
Yeah, I'm very conflicted.
No, I'm excited for that game too. I got a lot of buzz when it first came out. I haven't played it. I haven't really looked into it at all. But I have seen it on your shelf and I've been very curious. So looking forward to that one too.
Angela, can we own too many polyomino games?
Absolutely not.
I agree.
That's not a thing. If Gillian says you own too many polyomino games, you guys break up, you move into my house, you bring all those polyominoes, and we play polyominoes all the time.
The only polyomino that I'd be left with is A Feast for Odin.
Aw, just like 50,000 polyomino tiles.
You can play it solo. It's kind of okay.
And that's how I've played it so far.
How did I know Feast for Odin was going to come up when Angela started talking
I think it comes up a lot. And then I may have mentioned this, but I did try and see if I could learn it real quick to play with Gillian so he could have a pity polyomino game. But it's like a 3.86 on the crunchy level. That is not what I expect from a polyomino.
No, it shouldn't be, quite frankly.
Reed, you can go whaling, you can raise cattle, you can build boats. There are 99 options in this game.
Not quite that many, but probably around 60.
Yeah. Gillian's got 99 problems, but a feast for Odin ain't one of them.
Oh.
135 problems. And
Oh,
a feast for Odin. That's how many board games we have in our collection.
Yeah, those are our board games. My friend recently came over for a girls' night and taught me Gentle Rain. And I really enjoyed it. It is more like a peaceful puzzle, and I want to pick up a copy and like keep it at my work desk just to have like this little joyful box to take a break from looking at the screen or an infuriating email, and just like enjoy it. It is a small box, and the game consists of tiles. The tiles are square and the corners are cut out, so it kind of makes like a quarter of a circle. And then on each of the sides is half of a flower. I think there are about 7 different colors of flowers. And so on your turn, you draw a tile, you add it to the board, and you are trying to make 4 cut out corners make a circle. And once you have that circle, you can put one of the flower tokens in there. And at the end of the game, you're just looking to see how many tokens were you able to place and how many tiles do you have left. And this game basically isn't a game. Like, you're not competing against each other. You're not trying to do better than the other person or screw somebody's tile over. Like, you're just working together to work through this puzzle and place as many of the flower tokens as you can. So, like I was saying, you lay down a tile next, like you match up the flower colors, and then you eventually get a circle that you can put the flower token in, and you have to pick one of the colors of the 4 flower pairs that you made around it. And so you kind of want to be thinking about, like, when you place a tile, oh, I already have a yellow, a white, and a blue flower over there. Like, I don't want to make that same combination over here. So I'm going to choose to put it like this yellow flower next to a pink flower, just so you have more options to match your tiles.
Becky was describing this game to me, and I kept asking, well, do you steal the other person's tiles? Like, is it a race to get what you want? She was like, no, it's not. So I still don't understand the kind of cooperative, like, you wouldn't get upset that someone took your flower.
No, yeah, it's just a peaceful moment.
Reed, we might be broken that we're like, anyway, how do you screw the other person
How
over?
do you stab the person, Becky?
How do you win? What's the point of winning?
And I feel like this is my fault that you guys are this way.
Again, I didn't know that Carcassonne was mean until we met you.
Yeah, I had actually heard of this game, and maybe someone saying it's not quite a game, but they were saying they really enjoyed it. It didn't resonate necessarily with me, but kind of seemed like it had a little bit of Dwarf Romantic vibes, where you're kind of just placing tiles and building a beautiful town, and then you get enough points to unlock even more tiles to build your beautiful town, and off you go. And so I think there's something really beautiful in Zen and just being able to do that.
I did write this down from the publisher. They say, win, lose, take only what you need from this fleeting meditative experience that unfolds within 15 minutes and conveniently tucks away.
Wasn't this game published by somebody that made a game that...
Absolutely. Which that's also in my notes. It's by the same people who made the Delve Chronicles, Kinfire Delve Chronicles games.
Right.
Yeah, which Angela got me one of the games for my birthday, and I still haven't played it. We came very close to playing it. It's a 1 to 2 player game. It has cards with foil on it, and honestly, this was my other Joy game I was thinking about, and I was like, oh, I'll save it for the next one, but now I can't. But that game looks really cool. Very different than the peaceful meditative experience, but they're foil cards. I'm a sucker for foil.
And you guys, I think, bought the other ones in the series, but haven't played any of them yet, which I absolutely appreciate. It's like, it'll look great on my shelf for the next 6 months.
Yeah, Gillian was stoked. And I think he bought the next one when I was with him. And then, like, one day he came home and had a bag from Funnigan, which was weird. Like, we never have bags from Funnigan. And then I was like, what's in here? And he's like, I don't know, don't worry about it. And it was the 3rd one of the series. I was like, what? We haven't even played the other 2 yet.
Completionist.
Yeah, completionist, and this one came with the bard, and I want to play as the bard.
Haven't played any other character yet, but definitely gotta play as the bard.
Yeah, the bard looks cool.
Can you mix and match the characters? Oh.
You can take characters from the other boxes and play them against the villains.
That's cool. Okay, that makes sense. But also, I mean, again, to Gillian's credit, he is almost always right. And so I should trust the process. And we really need to play that game.
But then, considering all the Kickstarter games that we're trying to sell, I don't think that's entirely true, but thanks for the credit.
I love you.
My Joy game is one that I've owned for a while now, and I went through a really long phase of playing it solo largely, and a little bit with Becky and a little bit with a friend of mine, and that is Marvel Champions. It's a deck construction game, so rather than building the game as you go, or building the deck as you go, you construct it before you actually play the scenario that you're playing in, or the villain that you're going up against. But I recently got Marvel Champions Next Evolution and a couple of the mutant heroes. So Nightcrawler is one of my favorite heroes ever, and I just got the deck that came out. And so I'm excited to pick that game up again and start playing it. And I know Angela loves comics, and I want to get Angela to play Marvel Champions with me and to try it out. It's definitely better as a 2-player game than it is like a 3 or 4-player game, because it really drags the more players you have. But I am really raring to kind of go in and start playing that game again.
Yeah, during the board game sale, we went and grabbed lunch afterwards, and then we went to a local board game store just to check it out. And they had a whole section of like all of the Marvel Champion characters. And immediately I was like, how do I collect them all? I've never played the game, but I was like, oh, I want all of these. And then I was like, no, you can't get you can't get into this game. But it seems very appealing that you can just buy characters to add to the set, as opposed to like, you know, when you have to buy Lorcana packs and you're trying to look for certain cards to build a deck. These are pre-done, which I think is pretty cool.
You can't get into this game yet. You just need to play it with Gillian first, and then you're free to go.
You know what you need to do? You need to get Ashton to get into Lord of the Rings, the deck building game, and then you'll have basically Marvel Champions, but Lord of the Rings themed.
Absolutely. All I have to do is trick my girlfriend. It's not worked yet, but I'm counting on it at some point one day working.
You haven't tried Lord of the Rings yet.
Lord of the Rings. It's the way to her heart. Nucleum, released in 2023 and published by Board&Dice, plays 1 to 4 players. It's designed by Simone Luciani and David Terzi. The art is by Andres Reich, Piotr Slofin, and Zaiben Umpler. It retails for $70. Gillian, how do we play Nucleum?
Nucleum is set in an alternate history in which the Nucleum, or nuclear reactor, was developed in 19th century Saxony and used to power or generate power for buildings. In Nucleum, players take on the role of industrialists, trying to develop the economy and build out networks to be the most successful industrialist in this alternate 19th century Saxony. And to do that, they need to utilize the Nucleum to power infrastructure and buildings, build mines, build factories, or rather turbines, and then use those to power buildings. To succeed in Nucleum, players earn victory points by developing their networks. So in this game, you have action tiles that you can use either to execute their actions by placing them above your player board, or alternatively, you can use those actions as a one-time thing by placing them out on the main board that shares a shared space with players. When you place a tile out as a rail, you're going to develop your network, but you lose that action tile permanently. So it's a game where you're trying to balance using your tiles for their actions or using them to build out your network. Players also earn victory points by building and powering urban buildings. There are a set number of buildings that each player has on their player boards when they place them on the board and then subsequently power them through using uranium or coal or general electricity that you can get from your turbines. You will get achievement tokens or achievement stars and endgame victory points. Another way that players can earn victory points is through securing contracts by meeting those deliverables set in the contract. They can also earn immediate victory points, income, or some other benefit, such as level 1 or level 2 or level 3 technologies. And finally, players can meet milestones by passing and placing achievement stars, or if they earn achievement stars throughout a round, they can place a star on the milestone track, which is a multiplier for endgame victory points. There are 5 categories that you can get, each of which kind of escalates, so 1 to 5 multipliers based on these randomized tiles that players put out at the beginning of the game. There are 4 sections that you're going to look at, so they can range from the number of green buildings that you have, the number of commercial buildings that you have, or just the number of buildings that you have on the map. And at the end of the game, you look at those multipliers and where you've placed stars, and depending on where you're at, you're going to add a multiplier for whatever section that you fall under. And by adding up all of those at the end of the game or throughout the game, whoever has the most victory points wins. One of the key components of this game, though, is that each player has unique asymmetrical technologies. So in the base game, there are technologies A through D, each of which kind of caters to a different play style. A, for instance, gives you the ability to gain additional energy through using Nucleum, whereas another player might get an additional discount on coal for different turbines that you put out. The technologies, however, will allow you to do different things. One of the powers allows you to gain a multiplier at the end of the game, so a level 3 technology, that will give you victory points based on the number of rails that you've put out throughout the course of the game. And so that is another way in which players can gain victory points, is by achieving those multipliers based on your level 3 technology that's unique to the technology that you start with. And gameplay in the game is continuous, so players keep taking turns and going one after another until the end game conditions are met, and that ranges from 2 to 3 based on the number of players. So in a 4-player game, only 2 of those end game conditions need to be met. Those range from depleting all of the contract piles, or depleting all of the action tiles that you can get throughout the game, or somebody reaches the 70-point threshold on the scoring track. And so once 2 of those are met, every player gets 1 additional turn on top of kind of finishing out the current round. And so everyone will have the same number of turns by the end of the game. Whoever scores the most victory points wins, and is the most successful industrialist in 19th century Saxony.
The components of this game are really nice. I love all the wooden pieces. The board itself is colorful. The track that has the different scoring components for the end of the game that you put your stars on is really pretty. It's rainbow colored. I love it. And you have a dual layered player board, which, I mean, that's just like love at first sight for me with almost any game. And it's well done. Like, the pieces feel good. The colors look good together. It's not perfect. Like, the rails feel a little chunky, but I really like how they have a dual purpose of this is your action. And so it makes sense to me that they're a little bit larger, but sometimes just looking at for me, it's the rails on the board that I'm like, oh, this looks a little much. But overall, I think the quality's great.
Yeah, the game is really bright, and I know this is probably going to come up a bunch, so bear with us if we make comparisons a lot to Brass Birmingham Barrage or, some sort of railroad game in there. But this game is much, much brighter than those. When you talk about turn of the century, like Industrial Revolution, I think there's a certain thing that you think it's like deep and dark, and like I think Barrage and Brass have that look. This game is like bright and colorful and has lots of those pieces. My only miss for the components section, and when we talk about the gameplay, it'll make maybe a little bit more sense, but connecting your rail tiles into certain cities is a great function because it gives you a bonus action. And while the colors are really great, there is no other way to differentiate those colors. So if you do have vision issues. It might be really hard to tell that the green tile is going into the green city or that the red tile is going into the red city. So that was my only miss, is that there could have been some sort of symbology around that to help folks who can't see those set of colors. But again, I think the rest of it is really bright and colorful, and I love a dual layer board as well. It's my favorite.
I thought it was going to be a while before we got into this, but you brought up brass, and I feel like the internet is all about, Brass and Barrage had a baby and it's Nucleum. I think I said that correctly. But I just, as a person who's played a ton of Brass, the only similarities that I see in these two games are there's coal. You need coal to power stuff. There are rails, and I think there's one other thing, and now I can't think of what it is.
You need to be connected.
Yeah. The networks. Like, there's a network and being connected to things. And I do think those are similar mechanics. But I think you can say the same thing about Dune and Clink. Yes, there's deck building. Yes, there are cubes, and they're created by the same person, but, the games are different.
Well, going off the network concept, I think that in Brass, to follow that, the networks are very clear. And for some reason in this game, I was having a really hard time figuring out when I was connected. And I kept thinking, I'm connected here. But you're not connected, even if you have a rail, if your rail isn't the one that's going directly in. But you still get access to the power sources if it's connected. So I think I had a hard time determining how the networks supported your building within each city, because sometimes it worked and sometimes it didn't.
It's really interesting you say that, though, because I think they're very similar in that regard, Brass and Nucleum. It's just the way that you can go about it is different. In Nucleum, you can place rails wherever you want. You can put down your action tiles wherever you want. They don't have to be adjacent to your network, so you can spawn a bunch of individual networks across the map. But whenever you place a rail, as long as it is a completed rail, meaning that if there are two spaces, there are two rails that have been placed down, you are connected to both of the adjacent cities, and therefore you can build in them. That's very similar to Brass if you're using, say, an industrial tile or industrial card rather than a city card. Because if you have a rail that connects a city, then you can go ahead and play a card of that kind of general industry to play that industry in that city. So I think it's very similar. It's just the way that you can go about it in Nucleum, I think, caused some confusion, even for me. But by the fourth game, I was like, I understood it. I understand the nuance and the difference between how it's treated in Brass versus how it's treated in Nucleum. And it was interesting in this most recent play because cutting off people is much easier in this game, I would say, than in others, where there are certain single rail spaces where if you place it there, you cut off everybody's network that was trying to go through that city. But if you share a sequence of rails with somebody, then both of you technically have that network as part of your overall network.
I definitely had the same experience as Reed, and for some reason just struggle with that network piece in this game. And I wonder if some of it is that in Brass Birmingham, your network doesn't matter for scoring per se. Like, you're not going to not score a building because it's not connected to the rest of your network. Whereas in Nucleum, a lot of the scoring happens from what is in your network. And having that freedom to place that rail anywhere on the board, it's really easy to all of a sudden be like, my network, I have 5 networks of one city versus I have to build off of my own network in order to do anything like in Brass.
And that seems at some points like you're cavalier with your road or your rail building because you can just go. There are so many games that we play that you have to be connected that it seems like you could just stick a tile out on the other side of the board and all of a sudden your network spawns from there.
Yeah, I've only played the game twice, and the second time we played, I got myself locked out of a bunch of cities that I actually needed to score. You can take contracts in the game, which when you meet the condition of the contract, then you'll get some sort of reward, maybe activating something on your asymmetric board or getting people or money, something like that, victory points. And I had something that was place, I think, buildings in green cities. And when I took it, I realized that I was really, really locked out of green cities. And unlike Brass, where you can use a wild tile or a city card to get into something, you can't do that here. You're locked out, you're locked out. There's no way that you can get back in, which can really mess with maybe your endgame scoring conditions or something that you need. So it is a game that involves you thinking about very early on, what are the contracts that are out? What are the multipliers that are up on that track? Say it's a number of orange buildings that you place or number of cities that you place. And then, which sounds hard, then also tying that into what are some of the technologies on your own board that could cause endgame scoring. And then formulating a plan so that you don't get super locked out of something like green cities, which is what happened to me. And I just looked at the board towards the middle and said, oh my gosh, I'm so locked out. I can't take like wild cards to get into anything. So it's just something that you have to be forward thinking about all the time. Whereas like what is similar is the energy will flow. Don't matter whose tile it is. If you want to get coal and you're connected to a coal plant and there's a line from that coal plant to where you want to power your city, same with Nucleum. If there's a line, you can get it there. And so that's one of the things that's really nice is like Brass with selling a good, if it's connected to the goods dock, you can sell it. It's fine.
I think that one of the key differences, and this is where a lot of my confusion comes from, is that you can share rail tracks in this game, and in Brass you can't. Like once you're on a rail, it's yours. Nobody else can build there. And then in this, somebody else can build there. And I think that that's an element of area control that you just don't have in the other game.
One of my favorite features about this game is the dual action tiles. I think the first game that I played, I watched Reed almost on every single turn go to the market and buy more and more rail tiles so that she wouldn't run out. And there are good ones that will pop up that are better than your starting rails. Things like that get you discounts on buying future tiles, or on your dual layer player board, you move up these tracks, which when you go to take kind of like a refresh action, it will give you people, which are necessary to build rails, money, which is necessary for everything, or victory points. And so you use these tiles. It gave me kind of, I don't want to say Kutnahora vibes, but positive vibes of being able to use both sections of the tile. So I was like, oh, I get to get some tiles and I get a contract. Ooh, what a delight. So I really liked that aspect of this game and the decision space around when to use them to get the benefits, which you play on your player board, versus when you use that same exact tile to become a railway and put it on the board. And I really loved watching Reed get down to like 3 tiles in our last game, and I was anxious for Reed only having 3 tiles, whereas in the first game she had just bought like 1 million tiles.
Yeah, that's interesting, the balance of playing them on your player board versus putting them out on the map as a tile and losing them permanently. That is one thing that screwed me over, I think, in the first 2 games I played. Admittedly, like, I wouldn't say screwed me over necessarily, but I looked at my tiles that I had available after a refresh, and I was like, I only have 1 tile that does this one action. That's not great. And so it's interesting to try to plan that out using those as rails in addition to all the other things you have to take into consideration, because you can lock yourself out potentially of a certain action that you'll need. However, that said, there is a single tile that you have that you cannot play as a rail, but it's a wild that you can use as any action that you want. And so that's kind of a saving grace in that capacity. But nevertheless, you can find yourself at a very big disadvantage of, I don't have this action that'll get me more contracts. And I would ideally get more contracts to score more points.
And because money is so tight in this game, the tiles that you would need toward the beginning of the game are not always the tiles that you need at the end of the game. So you're like, well, I can afford to use this tile as a rail now, but then all of a sudden you're really regretting the fact that you needed that.
The last game that we played, both Reed and I were really dependent on that special tile that let you do whatever you could do. This was the first game of the 4 games I think I've played where I really screwed myself by getting rid of tiles with actions that I didn't replace soon enough, or anytime I looked to buy them, there weren't any options out there. And so one of the things that is the game trigger is by everybody refreshing 3 times or recharging. And so in that last game, Reed and I both recharged 5 times before Angela recharged the 3rd time to trigger that piece of the game end. So it was really interesting. I do think the plays that we've had have been fairly different, which is exciting for a game like that.
Yeah, I've definitely noticed in the 5 games I played, all of them were vastly different in how I approach them and how I've seen other people approach it. And in the most recent game, I've only played this game 2 times at 4 players, the same group, obviously. But it was interesting because the first time we played it at 4 players, like Becky and Reed were on one side of the map, and then Angela and I were on the other, and we were kind of allowed to do our own thing for the most part. However, in this most recent game we played, it was everybody clustered on the right side of the map, and everybody was in each other's faces, and everyone was vying for the same rails to connect networks, and it ended up being a very low-scoring game as a result, but it was a very close-scoring game where everybody was within like 5 to 15 points from each other, and so that was quite a different experience than the first 4-player game we played.
That reminds me. So when you recharge, you, like Gillian explained, you put however many stars you've earned from powering buildings or doing other things to put you on that track for end of game scoring. And if you don't have any stars, you get a man and 2 coins, but you also get 3 negative victory points at the end of the game. And I was like, oh, I really should wait until I have at least 1 star. And then Reed was like, the last game we played, it didn't make a difference. Like, I lost by way more than 3 points. Like, it's going to be fine. And I was like, okay, you're right, Reed. And so I did it. And then we play the game. We're counting the scores. Gillian is 2 ahead of me. And then he realized he missed 1 point and he was 3 ahead. And then I was like, oh my God, I lost this game because I didn't wait until I had a star. I mean, and surely, like, I probably could have done other things too, but it was just funny to have that moment to point back to be like, this is why I lost the game by 3 points.
And then finding out the most infuriating aspect of the game, which was, what is the tiebreaker, Becky?
There isn't one.
You share the victory. It's morally reprehensible, quite frankly. I have played this game, right, only twice. Very, very different plays. And the first time I was like, well, I'll go in this corner because nobody's going to be over here and I can kind of do my own thing. And you're trying to figure out the game the first time. So I made a number of stupid decisions that I could reflect upon and then do differently. And Becky had been really great of like, hey, if you build in this one city, Praha, this one area, it's worth double points for all of the buildings you can illuminate. And basically watched Becky and Gillian monopolize that in the game we had played. And I said, well, that can't happen again. So Reed and I immediately built in Praha her first time and said, all right, you guys suck. Which led to this clumping, which I thought was really fun, if not a little hard to get your stuff going, which probably is good. But where I have seen this growth and what I think upon is like, oh, I'm going to try this strategy or I'm going to try this strategy, which, you know, Reed is a big proponent of what strategy will I try? I think there's so many for this game. And one of the components that I find interesting as a strategic point is when you take this kind of refresh action, because I mentioned you have these 3 tracks that are the menu used to put out, or I should say the people meeples that you put out on the board, your money and your victory points. But say you're really, really far along on your money track, you only get to score as much money as you have action tiles. So where those 2 cross is what you score. So even if you have $10, if you've only done 3 or 4 actions, that means you're only going to score for where those action tiles are. And Gillian pointed this out to me at the end of the game, which the end of the turn comes and you're like, no, I need 1 more action. But I had built up my money so far that I was going to get a ton of victory points with it. And Gillian's like, yeah, but you can only score for how far your action tiles are. And so it made it so different. And so I've been going these really long action levels so I can get all of my tiles out so I can score as far as I can. But it does mean I get kind of screwed on the multiply scoring, because if you're the last person and you take that, yeah, you're going to get 3 points for kind of the end of game condition, but you're not going to have as many multipliers if you don't do that. And so I watched you guys score more than I did, and I was like, oh, should I take refresh action sooner? And that's the balance and the struggle that I really appreciated. And I haven't played with, well, what if I just took a refresh action after 4 turns instead of 9 turns? What would happen? So I'd like that decision space for it.
Yeah, and it's definitely dependent on the players that you have around the table, like Becky and Reed just refreshing almost every other turn, versus you and I that were kind of like going on and on and on until we refreshed.
Well, that was, the first game that you and I played, I only refreshed twice or something. The second game, I was on par with everybody else. And then the last game, I had no tiles to play the whole time. And it was really interesting. Like, the tile selection and the draw that you have plays so into it that I couldn't do anything once I had used my wild tile, because I had no actions that I could afford. And then I was waiting for these tiles to come up. And I think we went through like 10 or 15 tiles until the one where you could build a turbine or a mine came up. And then other ones were not coming up. And it was just frustrating to like not be in control of when you could do actions.
Yeah, it's interesting because you definitely have to take into consideration the unknown, in that you don't know if you're going to see what you need. And so you have to kind of count for that and what tiles you put out and lose permanently versus which ones you keep in your back pocket. I enjoy that aspect a lot, like the unknown there, which is kind of, I guess, contradictory to how I normally feel about randomness, but I liked it in this game.
I definitely learned a hard lesson that last game, and I now know that I really need to be careful with what I do. But even so, that last game, our scores were all so close, and we just had such different games. Like, the entire game, I was like, oh, I've done a terrible thing to myself. There's no way I'm going to keep up, because I'm having to recharge all the time, and I'm just not being able to do what everyone else is. And I think I only had 4 buildings built, which was not a lot, but I almost won. And so I was shocked, but I still think I'm going to work a lot harder to not, like, make my own decisions of what actions I'm putting down as rails.
Yeah, and I think about the choices that I made that helped both you and Gillian in a way, because I had built my government building and noticed that there were a lot of one color, but Becky had also put a government building of the same type. And so I was trying to enhance my own government building scoring, but it was unfortunately also uplifting Becky's score. And then I thought I was going to get like 1 or 2 more turns, and I really wanted to connect to coal because it was the cheapest source out there. But there's only 1 rail. So I was like, okay, I'm going to do this to power this up. The game final turn, and because I'd been the first player, I actually only got 1 extra turn. Gillian on his last turn was like, thank you for connecting to coal. I'm going to use all of this newly available super cheap sources of coal to get a bunch of points. And so for both of them, I had inadvertently placed it. And that reminded me a lot of Brass Birmingham, when somebody is building up Birmingham, and then they're building rails all the way around it. And so like, you're like, no, I want to build the rails and help myself, and I want to build that city up for myself. And it kind of dictates, like, I don't want to put something here because it'll help somebody else, and I don't want them to get those 5 points. So in that way, it was like I kicked myself, and I was like, oh, okay, how can I be smarter about this?
Thank you again for that, by the way.
You're like, ooh, cheap coal. Thank you. $1.
This is possibly one of my favorite action selection mechanisms in a game. I really love the tiles. I love thinking about what tile I want, planning out 5 steps ahead of time. Do I have all these tiles? No, I don't. Maybe I can get some, but I like the act of that. I like how you physically put this little tile up. I also like that ability to choose to lose a tile permanently, but when you place it, you get the benefit of one or two actions that are on there. And I think that this is done really, really well and has really like emerged as something that I'm thinking about, that I really, really like the action selection.
Yeah, the action selection is very excruciating. Like the decision space is very difficult to parse at times, especially in the early game. Where like, do I get rid of this tile to build this rail early so that nobody else has access to this specific rail? And then not making it, and then Angela comes along and places that rail, and you curse at her.
Well, I appreciated how close we are, because in the first couple of games that we played, I could not get powered up to save myself or my poor people living in there. And this last game, I was just powering up, but it didn't end up really affecting my end game score as much.
Yeah, each of the plays just feel different. Like, I'm excited to explore more with this game and to see all of these different pieces. Like, I think you can go for a while before it can kind of feel, or you can get the take of it with your game friends about like where you're going and what strategies you use. I do find this game to be, for as much as I like it, I do find it to be a little overly complicated in some of the symbology and things like that. It has a really great player aid that tells you what your board does, because you can be A, B, C, or D, which have their own unique set of powers and technologies. And so the guide gives you a really nice handy piece, and there is pictures of what all of the symbols mean. And I think Becky had brought this up. There are two images that do two totally different things that look vaguely similar. They're pointy arrows. And so I get a little confused every time I see that, and I do have to use the player board or the player sheet more often to be like, what does this do? And some of my technologies, I have to like take it out and be like, what is this one again? What does this do? But overall, I like that, but I do think there's some, I guess I would say, finickiness with the network system. It doesn't feel as clean and as crisp. And this game is rated technically crunchier than Brass Birmingham by a few points, and I could see that. Like, I think this game is, and it doesn't mean it's not a good game, but I feel like it's a little less elegant in its play than something like Brass Birmingham, although I do think that if you like Brass, you may like this game. If you like Nucleum, you may like Brass, but it does feel a little less streamlined, and maybe that's because we've played Brass so long, but it does feel a little less elegant to me.
I think that it feels a little long at times, and it's not that I'm not using the space to think. It's just the plays have definitely been a little bit longer.
Also, just a correction there, Angela. It's a few fractions of a point.
Yes, it's not a full
in
point.
terms of complexity.
Yes.
Which, that surprised me, because I do feel like the way that you score based on your networks does feel like a level up from Brass, in terms of you just need your network to be connected in order to build in certain places, or just any network to transport coal. But it does feel like it's a level up of complexity. And I agree with Angela about the kind of the time it takes, and it's just not as elegant. But I also appreciate, like, it doesn't feel like a point salad-y game to me, which I think is a plus. Gillian and I had played Praha, which we only played a couple of times and then sold because it just was too point salad-y. Like, it had a lot of cool things happening, but it was just like, do something over here for points, do something over here for points, and go here and go there and go here and get all these different points. And this game doesn't do that, and I do like that, but I'm not sure what I would change about it to kind of help speed it up.
It's interesting because I think for me, when I look at it and think about it, the game of Nucleum is just, it is more complex than Brass. Like, but I think some of that complexity that we're perceiving is maybe just tied to our familiarity with Brass, because we played Brass so many more times, and it does seem more elegant, and we understand the networks, we understand how all that works, and then going to a game that has that similar aspect, but they tweak it ever so slightly to make it just that much different that it's hard for us to like parse the difference is I think where that difficulty comes from. And so I definitely understand the comparisons between Brass and Nucleum. I'm excited to try Barrage because that's the other game that people often refer to when they talk about Nucleum, and so I'm excited to try that as well to see just how well founded those comparisons are.
Yeah, Brass took us like 7 games to get all the rules right, and then I feel like when we taught you two Brass, like it took us a couple of games to make sure we had all the rules right. And I think we talked about this when we shared Nucleum as a joy game, and I made Gillian share it with me. I'm really glad that Gillian and I learned that game first before we brought it to you too. Sometimes the 4 of us can like really dedicate time to learning a game and then playing it for the first time all together. But with the symbology and everything, I'm glad that we took the time to learn it and play it first.
Yep.
Yeah, this game is not one that I would play outside of this group. I don't know anybody that I would play this with. I don't think right now that this game would be added to my collection. I'm interested to see after 10 to 12 plays, like with Brass, if that becomes true, if it softens the edges, that there's less of a comparison. And I have to say, we love Brass Birmingham so much, which is why we make these comparisons. Whereas like you may listen to somebody who's like, yeah, this game, what is even Brass Birmingham? But I never thought I would add Brass to my collection, and now I've made the decision to add it because I love it so much. And I wonder if Nucleum, after a decade of plays, will have kind of that same thing where I'm like, oh, it's so elegant, I definitely want to add it to my collection.
I just want to note here that you ordered Brass, but you unfortunately ordered the wrong Brass and got it delivered. So there's that. You apparently didn't like it enough to choose the correct one.
Well, the thing is, I just really love Roxley, and so their customer service department is wonderful, and I wanted to talk to them. I didn't know how to get my in, so I purposely ordered the wrong game just so I could talk to the wonderful people at customer service.
Does that mean we're getting Brass Birmingham 2?
It's not going to be Brass Birmingham 2. It's going to be Brass
3?
It's going to be Brass Scotland. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Dear people who work at Roxley, we love you so very much. In this game that we're talking about, Nucleum, we're like, anyway, did we say that we love Brass Birmingham?
And Radlands.
And Radlands. They have a great collection. I love Roxley. And the Iron Clays are not to be missed, which we use the Iron Clays for Nucleum. So shout out, they're back in stock. Hopefully by the time you hear this, you should pick up some Iron Clays.
Maybe not 400. Maybe 100 will do. Who knows?
I can't even rebut that. I bought 400 because I love making change, and with Brass, I got so confused about the money that you pay to the board and the money that you pay to the bank, so I needed to make a lot of change, which makes sense that I would want a lot of ones, but what doesn't make sense is that I realized that I don't have any games that use money in my collection. So now I just have 400 Iron Clays that are like sitting in my room.
It's the pillow on which you sleep.
It is. I do. I sleep on top of those Iron Clays.
Yeah, I hope Nucleum captures my imagination. The first time I played Brass Birmingham, it was all I could think about. I obsessed about it. I watched the World Series of Board Gaming. I didn't feel the same way after Nucleum, but in the same way that I think it's a really great game. I'd love to get more plays of it. It just didn't capture my imagination. Like, I wouldn't put it in my top 10 board games of all time at this point. Again, I'm 2 plays into a game, and I think it'll do a lot more once I've played it more, or I'll be like, you know, it's just fine. I'd rather play Brass, or I'd rather play Barrage, or I'd rather do this. So it needs some time to marinate for me. I definitely think it's a good game. It's not a game you bring out to casual gamers, for sure. It is something for people who like, I would say, heavy Euros. Absolutely.
I'm excited about this being a part of our rotation, and there are a lot of games that, as we've talked about probably a number of times, or maybe just amongst ourselves, that as our collections grow, they just don't get enough plays, and this game got prioritized because we were all interested in it. We decided that we were going to record on it, and so we definitely played, you know, between 2 and 5 games in pretty quick succession, which is helpful for me in remembering the mechanics of a game and kind of, you know, putting it into my mind database. So I am excited about playing it more. And I would say it's definitely not in my top 10, but it's a game that I would happily play whenever it got brought out.
I want to see what everybody's top 10 is, just saying, because I would find that very interesting.
Killian, you can't say that yet. You're going to be teasing our New Year's 2025 special where we talk about our top games of the year.
Well, is it just the year of all time? That's what I'm curious about. What is everybody's all-time favorite?
Well,
Like,
I mean,
top
how
10
many
right
Railroad Ink expansions?
Oh my god!
Railroading red, railroading yellow.
I do regularly after we play a bunch of games. Shout out Pub Maple. I do my top 9 a lot, and so I recently did that. And Revive very solidly in there, but 6 months between plays is not acceptable for me.
I thought you were going to say your top 9 is just railroading red, railroading blue.
Yeah, it takes up a third of your top 9.
I don't even play the expansions with Railroad Ink. I just play the same one over and over again.
It's perfect. We brought it back to Railroad Ink, our truly perfect favorite game ever.
That's a lie. Anyway, Nucleum does have a series of expansions coming out. There was the Australia expansion that came out this year. There are a few more kind of smaller expansions slated for an Essen release, I believe. And the one I'm most excited for is Nucleum Court of Progress. And the reason I'm excited for that one in particular is because it adds 2 more technology boards so that it'll like help with the asymmetry. Because at this point I've played all 4 of them, all 4 of the base technology tracks, and so I'd be curious to see what the 2 new ones add. And then it also adds some additional like asymmetric powers in addition to the technology, so I'm excited to try that out.
Yeah, and I think is it Australia for the other expansion adds a new board that you can play on as well, because you can play the Nucleum board is double-sided. Correct.
It's 1 to 2 players on one side, and then it's 3 to 4 on the other side.
Yeah, so if you wanted to say like the cities are getting a little not as interesting, you could get Australia as well. I think it adds a few new mechanics to it, but whether or not you need the expansion.
Yeah, it also adds a shipping element to it that basically makes it easier for you to expand your network, or at the end of the game it'll like count as a network connection, so it'll help you with the end game scoring quite a bit. So that's all I know about Australia, but I'm more interested in Court of Progress.
So anyways, we really like train games.
Thank you for listening to Board Game Homies. Subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts and drop us a line at our Instagram page at Board Game Homies. See you next time. Gillian, how do we play Nucleum?
Oh god, okay.
Panic
attack.
Look it up.
Ooh, polyominoes.
Oh my god.
That's really good. That's good.